So welcome in that last video about the stadium tutorial within Golaem. In this video we'll just improve the simulation we already layouted by adding some flag characters within it. So the first thing is actually to add the flag to my character. So and to add the specific parameters to make it able to make some clothes sim. So actually, conveniently, we have already some meshes here. So we got a flag, a group. Within that flag group, we got a mesh for the stick and a mesh for the cloth. It's quite tessellated, just to make sure that the cloth simulation will have a good enough quality. You may also notice that I created an extra bone, which is named flag, which is not yet into the hierarchy. So I'm gonna add it into the hierarchy next to the right end. So I'm going to parent that bone to the right end. Okay, perfect. And regarding skinning, so I already skinned those two meshes, and I really want to make sure that you get this properly. So the stick is skinned to the end, so it's quite something quite classic. This means that if I move the arm, the sticks comes with. The clothes here, the vertices of the clothes are skinned onto a different part. So you want to make sure that the vertices which will not be simulated are skinned on a bone which is different from the vertices which will be cloth simulated. Which means here, if I go within wireframe, those vertices of the flag here, I want to make sure that they are not skinned on the same bone than those other vertices here. So what I've done is, if I go F9 and if I select those vertices there, and if I use Skin Wrangler, you can see that all those vertices, they are skinned on the right end, whereas those vertices here, they're skinned on a bone which is called flag. So all those vertices skin on that bone with a weight of 1, and all those vertices which will not be simulated are skinned on the right end bone. So as soon as you're good with this, then your setup is actually ready. So now you need to go within your Golaem character maker and improve your character file. So I'm going to reopen my character file I've been dealing with since the beginning. So go within Golaem characters, stadium character. And I'm gonna create a variation of that file, so I'm gonna call it Golaem character file. So first the skeleton has changed, so I want to make sure that this is gonna be taken into account in the rest. So I want to select my reference bone here and load the selected skeleton. So instead of recreating the whole mapping here and redoing exactly the same manipulation, Golaem asked me that if I want to just remap that mapping I already made by name, which means it will take, as the bone name hasn't changed, it will take exactly the same bones, recreate exactly the same node, and we'll just add the new bones or remove the bones that have been removed. So I'm going to say, okay, I want to remove by name, specify what's the up axis and front axis, so I'm quite happy with this. And now if I go within the hierarchy, I should figure out that I have a new bone, which is the flag bone. So my hierarchy has been updated. As that bone here is not animated, I don't really need to map it here, so I can just leave my mapping like this. So okay, the skeleton part has been updated, so that's fine. So what about the geometry part? Here I have added some geometry, so I would like to import those. So I'm gonna select the flag group here, select my part I would like to connect them to, and import it. So it has imported my stick, it has imported my clothes, as my clothes has some shading attributes. We saw that into the first video. It's sorry, it has created a shader attribute node. And let's say I would like to make a variation of characters having flag and not having flag. I'm just going to create an extra group here connected to that one here, remove that arrow, and just change its name to flag. And I can just create an empty group here, connected here, say it's a variation. So now I'm saying that my characters will have either a flag, which will be the stick and the clothes, or nothing. So I'm going to rename that empty. As once again the geometry has changed, I want to make sure that I update my geometry file. So right now the Golaem character geometry file, it's outdated, so I'm gonna delete it and I'm gonna create a new one. Once again, I'm gonna change its name to make sure that I don't overwrite the previous files. It's computed in the bounding box for my character, so it looks fine. And now I'm having my flag repetition here. So now it's saying that my characters, some of them, half of them have a flag and half of them won't have a flag. As this type here is actually used into, I'm going to save that, sorry. As that type here is already used in some scenes, I don't want to alter those characters. So what I'll do is I'll just leave it like it was before. So I'm going to say, okay, my default type don't have any flags, so every scene which uses the default type, they won't change, so that's fine. What I'll do is I'm gonna create another rendering type here. So I'm gonna go into the rendering type tab here, and I'm gonna say, well, you know what, no, I'm gonna do it differently. I'm gonna select the default type here, press plus, I'm gonna create a child. So if I select rendering type here, I'm creating a brand new rendering type where I'll be able to control every slider independently. If I'm creating a child rendering type, it will inherit from those properties, which means every time I'm going to change every of the parent sliders, that will influence the children sliders. So I'm going to create a default flag type. So just to make my point here, you can see if I change the t-shirt weighting, it changes it into the default flag type. But here, I want to remove the empty to 0 here and put flags to some value which is different from 0. So now I'm having a new rendering type. I can save that. Okay, I can close this, and save that scene which now has a flag. And I'm going to create just a new scene to test my flag close system. So I'm going to save that scene as a close scene. And once again, I'm going to create an entity type, load the stadium character flag. Do I want to load the shaders? Yeah, let's load the shaders just to make sure that everything works properly. So I'll go with the scene directory and open the stadium character. I'm going to create an Arnold light because I would like maybe to render this. And as soon as I've created my type, I can quickly create and populate my scene. Just add a couple of characters. Oops, not what I wanted to do. Okay, something like this. Change the distance between my characters. Press create and populate. Okay, so none of my characters have a flag yet because I've created another rendering type. So if I want to use that rendering type, I need to go into the entity type. So remember, by default, the default type doesn't have any flag, but I created another rendering type that I can add. I can remove the default and I can just rewind and replay the same, and now my characters, they all have a flag. As the flag is a surface, it only has normal on one side. If you want to have two-sided geometry within the viewport, go into render previews, press two-sided, and now you get your display proper. And to test that behavior, that close, I'm just going to open the behavior editor, go into check and get apex close behavior, put it here, and I'm gonna set it up properly. So what's the way you set it up is, what's the mesh I want to simulate? So the mesh I want to simulate is going to be close flag. And if we go into automatic apex creation, I can say from which bone I want to read the vertices list which will be simulated. So it's going to be from the bone flag. So remember, all the vertices here, which are not the one which are in collision with the stick, all those vertices, they are skinned on the bone named flag, which means that now if I run the sim, I get a proper and nice close simulation only on those vertices. So, okay, it looks pretty nice. I'm just going to run a quick export to check that it renders properly. So I'm just exporting that whole simulation and check that everything is fine. So okay, yeah, it's using Maya software right now, so I'm gonna go and select Arnold rendering engine and save the scene and render. So I'll be able to check if the closed cache can be rendered properly and if that looks right in the viewport. If the shading variation is here, so you can see you've got some blue, white, red flags, and looks nice. Okay, so that's pretty sweet. So what about now improving my referencing scene? So remember, this is my simulation scene in which I've got my default characters playing a Mexican wave. What if I would like to change this? I would like maybe to have some flag characters in it. So what I will do is I've got different ways of doing it, but the way I actually prefer to do that is I'm going to create a new entity type in which I'm going to load my character file here. It's asking me for some shaders which are not here. So, okay, sorry, the flag shaders, they're not here. I'm going to cancel that. The thing is, they are actually here. If I take a look at my man, I already imported. It has the flags shaders, it's just that they're hidden right now, so I just unhide them and now they exist. So okay, I created my second type, so I'm gonna rename that Stadium Man Flag, and that second type has a brand new behavior editor. So Stadium Man Flag container shape, and right now it's not doing anything. So I also want to maybe add it to my simulation, so I'm bringing back my population tool. So sorry, I will have my green guys which are using the default Stadium Man, and I will have the blue guys which will be the flag characters. So within the population tool, now I would like to say that into my entity types partition, there are going to be some Stadium Man shape types, but also some Stadium Man flag type. So I'm just adding it as a new type. You can see some slots get blue. I can change the weighting just to say, okay, I don't want to have much flags into my scene. I just want to have maybe a bit less, like 5% of my characters. So that's just a couple of characters right here. You know what? Maybe a bit more. 10% of my characters will have a flag, and I would like to replace this population tool. So it means that now I'll have some characters having the flag, so they don't have it because I haven't defined that their rendering type is going to use the flag. So that's going to be nice, and also I want to make sure that it's two-sided so I can see the flag at the end. Okay, so nice. Now I'm having my flag character, and I want to set up their behaviors. So first I'm going to set up the closed behavior the same way I set it up into my test scene, saying that it's going to be on that mesh here and it's going to be on that bone there. And I may want to play a nice animation as well, so I'm going to play a waving animation here, so waving, and I'm going to load that clip. It's a clip I already previously converted, so I've got a stand and rising arm animation. If we take a look at that clip, it's a man waving his arm, so that could be convenient for a flag simulation. And if we take a look at this, it's a bit too fast, so let's slow down that animation. Let's randomize the start frame as well, so let's slow it down to 0.7, 0.8, something like this should be better. Okay, not bad. Okay, I'm quite good with this. Now I can save that scene. So within that new scene, I have added a new type of character. That new type of character defines some new behaviors, and the idea is just to just update my sample here, my reference sample. And within my shot scenes, now I can populate some blue flag types of guys, put them where I want them to go, and do the simulation and re-export the cache. So now we just have to go into our shot scene where we got everything. Right now we are in cache replay mode, so we can go back into simulation mode, and we can go into our population group here, hide the pop tools which are just for the scattering, and bring back the pop tools which are for the simulation. So right now I'm just having my green guys entity types, which are replaying some animation, and I don't have any flag. So what I would like to do is save that scene, and to update the reference, I will actually just reopen it. So by reopen it, it will clear every object you'll have in your scene, and it will reload the reference and bring all the entity types within it. So okay, I've re-imported the scene. Now I've got my stadium character and my stadium man character. You want to make sure that you go into Golaem and update the reference, so it means that it will parse the environment and the new nodes and do the convenient connections. And it means that now you can go into your population tool, that one here, and go into the entity types attribute and bring your blue type of characters. And conveniently, you can here as well specify what you'd like, and just export or run your sim, and you'll get some characters. Oops, sorry, I should have refresh up and reload the sim, and now you get the characters holding the flags. So they're complaining that the shaders are not here because we need to do exactly the same manipulation that we did for the first type, which is specifying the namespace. So here, once again, the namespace is going to be sim scene. I'm going to have to refresh the geo, run the sim, and now I've got my characters playing some nice clove sim and some nice behavior. If you got too many characters, once again, you can go into the pop tool and reduce this, saying, okay, I just have to have 5% here of my characters having a flag, and that's better. And final step is you need to re-export the cache if you want this to be taken into account into the layout. So remember, we got all that process on top of the cache where we layouted some characters everywhere. So we would like this to be taken into account. So we'd like to export the cache for those characters, so that will be scattered the same way that we scattered the previous characters earlier. Up. So now it switches back to the layout mode, and now you can see that you've got some characters having some flags here and there. So a couple of stuff that you would like, oops, there are some flying flags here. That's just because you need to rewind the sim once and just to run the sim afterwards, and there you're quite good. And a couple of things you may want to do when you're done here, you can still select, you know, some characters, and within the layout tool remove them. So that's quite convenient if you're not happy. You can still also take some characters and move them away. So as the ground has been exported, you may see that the characters will adapt on the ground and they'll be able to figure out what's wrong. You can change, if you go within the tool settings and you're within the scale tool settings, and your setup is within the word axis, you can just change the density of your characters. So once again, it's pretty convenient. And when you're all happy with this, you can just save that and re-render your stadium again. So I'm having a couple of holes here and there, but whatever. So that's all for the stadium tutorial. I hope it made sense, and feel free if you got any questions or if you got any issue, feel just free to send us an email at support@golaem.com, and we'll be happy to help you figure out what's wrong, or maybe improve that tutorial by adding some additional section to it.